On the 7th of August 1944, the British troops of the 5th Battalion of the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry of the 43rd Wessex Division received orders to clear the village of Le Plessis-Grimault in Normandy, France. Concentrating on top of a piece of high ground known as Mont Pinçon, the 5th Battalion spent most of the 7th preparing for this attack, the plan for which was broken up into 2 phases. In Phase 1, the battalion's C Company, supported by tanks of the 47th Royal Dragoon Guards, were to advance south from Mont Pinçon to the area of La Baye, where they would stage a diversionary attack against Le Plessis-Grimault, with the intention of drawing the Germans onto the western side of the village. Once this was achieved, Phase 2 would commence, with A Company infiltrating into the village from the north, where it would outflank the enemy and complete the capture of Le Plessis-Grimault. H hour for the operation was set for 21:30. After completing their preparations, the men of A and C companies marched down from Mont Pinçon in the evening of the 7th and formed up at their respective start lines. Then at 21:30, the artillery of the 43rd Division opened up against Le Plessis-Grimault, behind which C Company and the tanks of the Dragoon Guards advanced to begin their diversionary attack. Detailing this phase, the history of the 43rd Division states, "The enemy was quick to react with his mortars. Against the armour of the tanks these had no effect, and the infantry was so dispersed that only 2 men were wounded. Soon the tanks were close enough to fire their Besser machine guns into the western fringe of the village. It was now dark. Suddenly, there was a deafening explosion as an enemy ammunition store exploded in a fury of gold and red flame. This magnificent bonfire acted as a screen to the attacking troops. The trace of bullets pouring into the village ricocheted across the sky." With C Company having successfully drawn the attention of the enemy, the signal was given for A Company to begin their assault. Crossing its start line at 22:10 on the 7th of August, A Company advanced down the main northern road that led into the village. Spearheading the company was No. 8 Platoon, which quietly reached the first set of houses and ambushed an enemy outpost, killing 2 German soldiers and taking 3 others as prisoners. Shortly afterwards, a second enemy position was located nearby and dealt with in a similar manner. Pushing on, the platoon methodically worked through and cleared each house, garden and alleyway until it eventually reached the central crossroads of Le Plessis-Grimault at around 22:30. It was here that the platoon's advance came to an abrupt halt, as the British troops spotted 2 King Tiger tanks, a half-track, and a lorry parked up on the crossroads itself. In addition, a large group of German infantry were gathered around the vehicles, whilst other personnel were seen moving ammunition from the lorry and loading it up onto one of the King Tigers. Present with No. 8 Platoon at the time was Warrant Officer Class 2 Reginald Philp, who later recalled, "To our surprise, across the other side of the road against some houses, there was a large German tank being loaded with ammunition from a lorry which was parked right against it. We stopped under cover and watched the Germans, carrying ammunition, smoking cigarettes, talking casually, and they weren't aware we were there." Immediately, No. 8 Platoon sent a message to A Company headquarters, requesting for a Piat to be brought forward to deal with the enemy vehicles. This request, however, couldn't be fulfilled, as the company's Piats had been lost in previous fighting and had not yet been replaced. Consequently, No. 8 Platoon had to make do with what they had, and it was soon decided that the platoon would lay down a wall of machine gun, small arms and mortar fire into the enemy, with the aim of causing as much damage as possible. To lead this ambush, the platoon's 2-inch mortar team, commanded by Lance Corporal Gerald Pierce, was ordered to move up and get as close as possible to the Germans, before firing a mortar round in their direction. This would then act as the signal for the rest of the platoon to open fire. For the following actions, Lance Corporal Gerald Pierce would be awarded the military medal, the citation for which reads, "In the bad light, the dim shape of a tank and a couple of half-tracked vehicles could be seen on the crossroads. Well knowing that the 2-inch mortar was not much use against tanks, this non-commissioned officer and the other member of his team nevertheless advanced to close range and engaged the tank with high explosive in the hope of hitting anything or any enemy vulnerable to shrapnel. Their first round hit an ammunition truck lying next to the tank and set it on fire. With extreme disregard for danger, the team then advanced to still closer range and lobbed grenades at the tank. In a matter of seconds, the whole crossroads was a blazing and exploding inferno." Through a certain amount of luck, the first 2-inch mortar round fired by Lance Corporal Gerald Pierce struck the lorry, causing the ammunition on board to detonate. Such was the scale of the explosion that the lorry, its occupants, and most of the German troops standing nearby were obliterated, and the King Tiger sitting to its right had an internal detonation, causing its turret to become separated from its hull. In the moments following this explosion, the rest of the No. 8 platoon poured small arms and machine gun fire into what was left of the enemy force. Believing the British to be stronger than they actually were, the crew of the 2nd King Tiger started up their engine and withdrew from the area without firing a single shot. Similarly, those few German soldiers who were fortunate enough to survive the blast quickly dispersed into cover before retreating into the southern and eastern parts of Le Plessis-Grimalt. Close on their heels were the men of No. 8 platoon, who moved up from their positions and swiftly secured the crossroads area. The unit then pressed on further into the village, and by 2300 on the 7th of August 1944, the whole of Le Plessis-Grimalt was in British hands. Soon after, the remainder of A Company arrived to reinforce No. 8 platoon's position. They were joined later that night by the rest of the 5th Battalion of the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry, which pushed out and established defensive positions in the neighbouring countryside. The next morning, on the 8th of August, the Germans launched an armoured counter-attack against the 5th Battalion in an attempt to retake the village. This effort, though, failed to make any progress, and by late morning on the 8th, the Germans had called it off. This thus concluded the battle for Le Plessis-Grimalt, with the history of the 43rd Wessex Division noting that. With the coming of daylight, the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry realised the extent of their astounding success. 31 of the enemy lay dead, 125 prisoners had been taken. A King Tiger, 2 Nebelwerfers, 1 half-track, 1 staff car, and a great deal of miscellaneous equipment had been captured. All this had been achieved at the cost of 1 man killed, 5 wounded, and 1 missing. Le Plessis-Grimalt will always stand high amongst the battle honours of the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe so that you never miss one of my future videos.